Serious, those who explored abandoned buildings that went seriously wrong. What happened? Friend of mine got an urbex tip about an abandoned military munition storage. Wide open gate, no locks. Drove right in. Found these grass covered bunkers. Empty inside, but very cool and creepy. Took some great pictures. All of a sudden a helicopter flies by. Low. Strange, but not that strange. My friend gets really spooked though. Looked like a police chopper. He insists we pull the truck into the bunker to hide in case it comes back. I pull the truck in, and sure enough it comes back. We all duck into the bunker, and this thing drops into a low hover, right above us. Spotlight shining on the bunker door. We are completely fricked. After a few minutes we all agree this is it. Squad car must be coming. Life is over. We just trespassed into some federal facility we only thought was abandoned. We are getting arrested. We all agree we might as well just come out. So we all walk out, into the spotlight, show ourselves, set our camera and tripod down. Chopper hovers there, nothing on loudspeaker. They're just looking at us. And then it turns and flies away. What does this mean? I don't know, just get in the freaking truck. So we all butt out of there, as fast as we can drive. And never saw a sign of the police again. Was probably just a training flight for hours. I used to work at a small airport and we'd get Whirlabad stop by for night practice. They used to have fun hovering and spotlighting us if we came out. I can totally see a pilot going, yay, let's see if we can make these guys pee their pants. It was in the forest behind the neighborhood I lived at as a child. It was called the Abandoned Grease Factory, a pretty spooky place for kids in the neighborhood to visit. Me and a buddy get asked by two kids who are about 3 or 4 years older than us to go check it out. We agree because we thought it would be cool. The two older guys after arriving begin making a crap ton of noise, like banging on walls, shouting, climbing to the top of the building and throwing crap off. Me and my buddy think nothing of it. Well, out of nowhere the two disappear. Me and my buddy begin swearing, trying to figure out where to go. Lo and behold, 3 cops walk out from around the corner and grab us. I guess the 2 older kids knew that cops come check the place often and they were causing a scene to attract the cops and get us in trouble. We were in 5th grade, I believe. My parents were not happy to see us arrive at the house in the back of the cop car. We then became mortal enemies with the older dudes, always trying to get back at them. Nothing very serious I guess went wrong, but man will I hate those guys forever, haha. I used to live in Virginia when I was younger and I had a good friend that I often stayed over at her house. Her dad had her one weekend and invited me over. We ended up going to his friend's house. It was a beautiful plantation house out in King George, I think, County. 3-story house with a lot of the original Civil War era furniture still inside. Some of the beds and stuff had sheets on them and the Smithsonian was supposed to come out and get the furniture. The guy had gotten a great deal on the house because it was so old and needed work and was apparently haunted. The house was amazing. There were little metal lined holes in the wall in each room where a little fire would go, and I think piping connected them, but I wasn't really sure. There was a small cot in one of the upstairs rooms that still had bullet holes in it, and there were dark spots on the floor that may have been blood, and there were bullet holes in the ceiling. The guy that lived there had a friend come and bless the very bottom floor where he lived. It was like a studio apartment. There was a bathroom, a kitchen-like area, a fireplace and a pull-out couch that he slept on. He told us how there would be footsteps all night throughout the upper floors and banging on the door that led to upstairs, which he obviously kept closed and locked at night. Now, onto the abandoned building part. My friend and I decided to explore the property, which had several slave cabins on it. They were pretty dilapidated and in need of some serious repair when looking from the outside. We decided to go into one and found a lot of furniture and paintings that were in surprisingly good shape. Upon entering the cabin, though, we just got this overwhelming feeling that we were not supposed to be there. It just felt wrong. Like this overwhelming feeling of dread. I told my friend that I felt like some bad things had happened there. We decided to press on and started up a ladder that went to a loft inside the cabin. There were holes in the roof and we could see sunlight coming through. I got up to the top, looked into the loft and just felt like I had to get out of there now. I didn't see any ghosts or bodies. Nothing creepy happened. Nothing moved. I just knew I had to get the frick out of there. I don't know how to describe it other than that. Maybe it was supernatural. Maybe it was my mind playing tricks on me, but something told my little 13-year-old brain to get out of that slave cabin that day or else. So we did. Me and my friend got the heck up out of there. As soon as we left and had taken a few steps away from the cabin, we could feel the dread and trepidation just melting away. I am in my 30s now and it's an experience that I share all the time because of how intense that emotion was. Even now as I type this, I feel that dread washing over me as I remember those paintings behind the couch in the cabin and how my legs trembled as I climbed the ladder. I didn't do it personally, but I used to work for an insurance claim management company that contracted people who did, and I have two stories that stand out. One of our contracted employees entered an abandoned house and went room to room to confirm damages. Dude entered the final room to find out it's been fully decorated to be a satanic shrine. Our contractor saw someone just standing there in the middle of the room and bolted for the exit once he realized there was someone else in there. 2. Lady I was walking through the process of accessing a property we were managing, found a dead body. Appeared to have been recently killed too. Said that the guy was laying in a pool of blood. She quit because of this incident. Bonus story. We once received the full report done by one of our contractors for a home that was in a newer suburban development. Apparently the property had some serious piping plumbing damage because the interior of the home was completely covered in mold. 2-story home and it was just mold city. So bad that the wood in the walls were practically melting. I couldn't help but think how this is a health hazard for the neighboring homes in the area, and I would have been livid if I lived there. When I was about 12-13, me and a good friend of mine used to visit a rural woodland area near our houses, but soon found that the forest was like a bowl shape and the rim was around some construction sites. Anyway, we climb up the forest walls, which were super steep, and we made a lot of grunting noises as we were climbing up. We keep walking up and climb under over a fence and the whole construction site is completely silent. There's like nothing there except a skip and weeds growing every which way. It's definitely been abandoned for a while. Anyway, we did this a few times in the space of several months, and one time I decide to journey to this area by myself and check it out. So I get there, and as I'm on my way to the bowl part, I stop and get my bearings right when a pretty big stick hits me really hard in the back of the head. I turn around and there's no one there. I even shout who's there and then pretend to laugh, assuming it's someone from my school playing a prank on me, but there's no answer. Now the stick that hit me wasn't just dropping from a tree, it came sideways, like an arrow almost down the aisle of the path I was walking down. I remember looking around and upwards, thinking that it's crazy how I'm here completely alone. Anyway, I left straight away, mentioned it to my brother, who mentioned it might have been some exceptionally deadly owl that nips people's necks ears, and then never mentioned it again because the thought of being there not alone is freaky. That's my mediocre story. I got hit by a stick and retreated back home. So in my town there is an abandoned paper mill. As dumb teenagers do, my friends and I decided to explore it. We knew of some other kids in our high school who go there regularly, so we thought nothing of it. So we had been there for maybe 20 minutes or so, and we just see a dark figure and hear a loud hey. Knowing that we were busted, we started to run into a dead end. Turns out it was the owner of the mill. He was a really nice guy and he gave us a tour. His vision was to turn that place into a 5-star restaurant, but until then he would rent out the space for film crews. A few horror movies had been filmed there. He was there just checking up on the place and sectioning off the places the floor was weakening. He honestly probably saved one of us a trip to the ER because the floors look fine till you put any pressure on them. We felt bad, so we showed him where the hole in the fence was so he could seal it later. That's actually very understanding of him, and cool that you guys gave back his niceness by telling him about the hole. I went into this creepy abandoned mansion that was also used as a mental institution before it was abandoned. Didn't even expect to get in, but a connecting building had an opening and I just wound up in the mansion. Anyway, super cool place. Right out of a horror movie. As I'm finishing up exploring the place, I come up on a room on the top floor. Door was open and as I walked in I noticed a sign. It read, "Warning, high levels of asbestos in this area. If you have been exposed, go to nearby hospital immediately." Tried to breathe as little as possible as I booked it out of there. Didn't go to the hospital because I doubt I could have been exposed to so much asbestos I'll have problems. And even if I was, there's nothing a hospital is going to be able to do anyway. Instead I went home. threw all my clothes in the wash, took a shower, and bought a gas mask for future explorations. Asbestos doesn't work that way. It has been turned into something similar to nuclear fallout, but it takes repeated exposure of it and does form to harm you. Used to explore an abandoned mushroom factory in Ohio with friend in middle school. Sometimes we would climb on the roof. One time we used a crowbar that was left behind to break into a door and walk around the rooms inside. But it was very dark and we didn't have flashlights. I remember one room had lots of black plastic trays the mushrooms were grown at. We also explored an old water treatment outbuilding as well, with the retention pool next to it that had a large metal mixer swirling around. Back when it was in operation, the factory used to put off an odor that would waft a half mile or more down the road where we lived. It was the joke of our small rural road. One day while riding our bikes up the long driveway to the building, a car, SUV, and a Harley motorcycle came driving in at a fast pace. Drivers did not look like your typical businessman that may have some legitimate business at the property. There were rumors of drug deals performed back there, and this small invasion spooked us. We tore off on our bikes and didn't come back often after that. There were train tracks on one side of the building that we would walk along for miles in the country. The only activity on those tracks was an infrequent trash train that traveled at low speeds, like 10 mph. Across the road and down the tracks from the mushroom plant was the foundation remnants of the old Miller homestead. Rumor was that the Miller family had been murdered by an axe-wielding attacker in the 1940s or 1950s, but I could never find any info on it with the internet when I searched. We would poke around the remnants at times as teenagers do. Nothing too interesting. Back in my teenage hoodlum days, some friends and I did some urban exploration in an abandoned medical facility. It was perched atop a steep hill with only one road in and out, surrounded by a small forest. From what we had heard, this place did some serious procedures, heart surgery and the like, but now it was totally left to rot, or so we thought. We imagined our expedition would be a creepy midnight jaunt through a haunted hospital that we could brag about to our lamer friends. So I drive up this hill and park behind the facility. The first thing we notice is that there are some ambient lights on. The place is not totally off the grid like we were led to believe. No problem. They are probably there just to scare off troublemakers like us. The rest of the facade is dark. There are no cars in the lot. Then, as we're scoping out the exterior, we notice that there's a board over one of the windows. Sure enough, we peel it back and the window is broken. A way in. We waste no time in vaulting up and over, avoiding the edges of the broken glass. Suddenly we're inside and it's clear this place is certainly not abandoned. There are interior lights that come on as we wander around. There's some equipment scattered about. I start to get an uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach. My friends are enjoying themselves and I don't want to be the P who got scared. Yet I can't ignore the sense of pure dread that is getting stronger every second I'm in this place. Finally I tell them that we need to GTFO, and don't bother explaining why. I drove, so they have no choice but to follow me. We scramble back out the window we came in, climb in the car and peel off, turning off the only road that leads up the hill and stopping at a nearby gas station. A few of my friends went inside to get drinks, but a few of us stayed in the car. From the spot where we parked you can see up the hill to the outside of the facility, and we watched as a security car with flashing orange lights pulled up to the front, followed shortly by a cop car. We must have missed them by 2 minutes. Once my friends come back we point out the welcome wagons sitting outside the facility, and after a bout of nervous laughter we head back home and marvel at how lucky we are. If I hadn't listened to my gut, my hoodlum friends and I probably would have spent some time in juvie for breaking and entering. Me and 5 of my friends went to explore an old building next to the college in our town back when we were 12. The college didn't use it and it was decently far back into the woods. There was basically what you would expect from this kind of building. Old student papers, documents, and books thrown all over. Since we didn't think we found much at all, we decided to leave. One of my friends pointed out that there was a back door. We go out there and see a path leading up to a groundskeeper's house. We think. As we go in, it's clear that the house is not new and has been abandoned for a while. We go through the front door and the stench is horrifying. The carpets are ripped up. Things are strewn about and broken across the room. There are family photos on the wall, seemingly intact. After we look at the living room, we walk through the dining room into the kitchen via a pocket door that still worked. The kitchen looked like crap, with moldy food all over, stains on the walls, and the fridge had fallen down right in the middle of it all. As we decide to loop around through the hallway to go upstairs, one of my friends notices that there is a door to the basement. It seems a little flooded, but that's normal, since we live 5 minutes from the Long Island shore. As we're about to go in, we hear a deep, raspy voice that said "get out." Before we could even scream, we ran out and down the path to our bikes and left. Still the most terrifying moment of my life to this day. I was on trip with friends. At the end of the trip, most of my friends were clicking pictures and I was not super into it, so I decided to take a walk on my own. I didn't know where I was going, but I saw interesting building and wanted to go there. I was trying to remember every twist and turn I take so wouldn't get lost. I took a left into a more rustic looking street, which I soon regretted. After some time I realized there were a few brothels in the street and I was really scared. I was in my teens and ran into a building which was kinda abandoned. There I saw two serious looking dudes discussing something and one of them had a gun. I'm from India and guns with civilians is not common. I felt my heart slip. I quickly made a run for it and ran into the back door of the hotel, where a guard saw me panicking and let me in. There was an abandoned hospital we used to go to when we were kids. Most people just went to the parts that were easy access, but there was another part of the hospital that you could only access by climbing on the roof of the lower level and getting in through a window. The lower levels of this particular building had sheets of metal covering all the entrances. One night, we decided to go into the restricted area. The first thing we noticed was, as we went down the hallway, was that there were roaches, which was unusual because it was so cold outside. I didn't pay much mind to it until we stumbled upon the dead body in one of the rooms. I only saw the bloated foot and don't think any of us have ever run so fast in our lives. We ran to the nearest payphone, yeah this was a long time ago, and called the police to report it. My best guess is a hobo probably went there to seek shelter and overdosed. There's an abandoned hospital not far from where I live, used for multiple uses before it shut down. There were a few windows with the plywood split off, so me and my friends would check them out. Annoyingly, a lot of the interior doors were screwed shut and we didn't want to make a racket kicking them or anything. The landowners lived on the site and would call the police if they knew you were there. I saw that there was an old hatch in the roof, so I pushed an old bed and climbed through it to get to the next building along. I'm crawling through this dusty butt space and then my hand hits something squishy. My friend passed me a torch and I realized it was a Bible. I looked around me, and I crap you not, there was stacks of Bibles all the way through this attic. No idea why, if I was over the chapel or what. Anyway, I kept on crawling and suddenly the gangplank just gave way and I went straight through the roof and landed on the floor below me. The torch was still up in the crawl space. By this point I'd passed 2 more walls so my friends couldn't hear me, and every window was boarded up so it was pitch black. Creepy enough as it was, I started trying to pry open the wood to get some light and to see where I was. You know, in the movies, a shaft of light will shine in a perfect beam to illuminate something. What do I see? A baby. A baby's freaking face. I nearly started crying right there. It was an old China doll. I'd fallen through into the old maternity wards. Eventually I'd gotten enough of the wood loose that the room was light enough and it was full of old buggers and children's stuff that hadn't been touched for 40+ years. After getting my butt out of there as quick as I could, I ended up in an outdoor courtyard that was blocked off on all 4 sides. Had to climb up and over the roof to get back to my friends. Then what do I arrive to? Yep, police. Me and 2 friends were exploring some old Soviet buildings in the country of Georgia. This was midwinter, and to get to each building ruin we had to trudge through about 2.5 feet of snow. There is probably 25 people in the entire town, no one near us for miles, no cell service. After we had our fun and decided to head back to the road we used to walk there, we decided it would be quicker if we cut across this field of snow, straight to the road. I'm in front, and about 10 yards into walking I step and fall almost completely into a hole hidden in the snow. I am in this awkward position with one leg dangling on the hole, one leg and arm holding on above the hole. I tell my friends to stop, and I try not to move since I don't know if I'm holding onto the ground or just tightly compacted snow. Using my fingers I slowly shovel snow back and forth until I can see where the ground is. Then I put all my weight there and pull myself out. Looking back into the hole, I crap you not, it's about 20 feet deep, and the bottom is just a bunch of broken concrete with metal rebar sticking out it. If I fell in completely I would have been royally ducked. I never partook in the destruction I'm about to describe, but I did always come along for the pleasant long walk, and because I was a lonely teenage boy. Anyway, I grew up in central Mississippi and there isn't a whole lot to do there. I was an especially nerdy kid, and my parents didn't invest into high-speed non-dial-up internet until I was about 16. Instead of sitting in a dark room in front of a screen all day, decided to start taking regular walks around the area. I'd often walk across people's farmland and most people didn't mind. They'd ask what I was doing if I was caught, and I'd explain that I was just walking, and they'd tell me to be safe and to not damage anything. Anyway, more kids moved into the neighborhood I was living in and I started to have company on my walks. One day, a few of the guys I would go for walks with asked me if I wanted to see this abandoned farmhouse. We walk about a mile, at least a quarter mile, into a cotton field that backed up to some woods. At the edge of the woods was this abandoned farmhouse. I refused to go in because of the sheer amount of animal crap and the overall smell. Outside the farmhouse were a bunch of junked out rusty old cars and oddly enough a train car. This became our destruction palace. We'd regularly walk out there and just smash stuff while I watched because I'm wimpy like that. After about a month or so of doing this, the other guys went inside and started smashing up the interior. One day they came out and mentioned that they managed to smash some beams clean and too. Didn't think much of it and was never going inside actually look. Fast forward a week and a really bad storm hit. After everything began to dry out and we could walk out to the old farmhouse, we did. We get there and the place has completely collapsed. My friends had destroyed some support beams and the house could no longer withstand the storm and fell apart. I don't know anything about architectural integrity, but I can't help but wonder if we were ever in danger of having the whole place collapse on us. TLDR. Some friends of mine destroyed what were probably support beams in an old abandoned farmhouse, and the next time we went out there the whole building had collapsed. That's kind of sad. I'm glad you didn't destroy the stuff. Someone could still own the land waiting to fix it or have a lot of memories and family history tied up in the house. I've been around a fair number of abandoned places, but always make sure that you leave it exactly as you found it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.